dear friend, esteemed colleague, and an amazing talent. And please welcome our special guest, Alejandro Mejía. He recently won the Best Cinematography Award at the Tribeca Film Festival for his work in the feature film The Knife by Nami Asamuga. And he also shot the feature film In the Summers, the debut feature by Alessandra La Coraza, which won the Grand Jury Award and Directing Award in the US Dramatic Competition at the Sundance Film Festival in January. Congratulations. And I guess it's important to mention that it's the first Latinx film that wins the top prize at Sundance. So a big landmark.
Yeah, and it was also the first female director winning Best Director at Sundance.
Lots of achievements. Previously, Alejandro lensed Sansón and Me by director Rodrigo Reyes, which screened at the Tribeca Film Festival and also at the Camera Image Film Festival in Poland. His work received a nomination for the prestigious Energa Camera Image Golden Frog, which is kind of the Cinematographer's Film Festival. I love that festival because usually it's about the directors, there it's about the cinematographers, and it's such a prestigious festival. Also in 2021, his feature Son of Monarchs by Alexis Gambis also screened at Sundance and won the Alfred Sloan Feature Film Prize. And also, in addition, the Camera Image Film Festival recognized Alejandro's work in the cinematographer's debut competition. In 2020, for 99, also by Rodrigo Reyes, won the prestigious Golden Frog Award at the Camera Image Film Festival for feature documentary film. And his work also, and actually, yeah, you've won twice Best Cinematography at Tribeca. One for fiction, one for nonfiction. So pretty impressive. Congratulations. And also for his work on 306 Hollywood by Ellen and Jonathan Bogarin, Alejandro won an Emmy Award nomination for Best Cinematography. In 2015, he shot a short film called Stay Awake, which screened at the Berlinale and won the Best Narrative Short Grand Jury Prize at the Slamdance Film Festival. And Alejandro also served as the cinematographer in the feature film version of the short, which premiered also at the Berlinale and where it won the CinemaVision 14 Plus Award in 2022 and the special mention in the Generations section. In addition, Alejandro has participated in the 2016 Berlinale Talents, the annual summit and networking platform of the Berlinale. And in 2022, he served as a mentor for the program Adobe Ignite at the Sundance Film Festival and the mentorship program Talent Demo of the Camera Image Film Festival. Since 2018, Alejandro has been a proud member of the Mexican Society of Cinematographers, the AMC, IMC. And he's based, of course, in Brooklyn and represented by innovative artists and 9 AM cinematography. Wow, pretty impressive, Alejandro.
No. No, thank you very much, ARRI and Carlos, for doing this talk with me. I just want to mention Carlos just got into the academy 2 days ago, so an applause also. And thank you everyone for joining this evening.
I have to say it's a treat in many ways. First, having the chance to talk with you. I know you for so many years, but I rarely get to talk about your practice. Also because traditionally in the film world, it's about film gets validated by the director, and of course it's always been a collaborative art. So in a sense, I'm really grateful to learn about the other aspects of making the films, which is as important as the director. I'm very critical about just the central figure of directors. We should also involve all the rest. So in that sense, also it's a treat to learn more about the cinematographer. So in that sense, I'm taking it everything that you wanted to ask a cinematographer, but you were afraid to ask. So let's start from the beginning. What moment in your life you decided to work in film, and particularly as a cinematographer? How did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a small place in Mexico called Cuernavaca, and I was in a school with like a lot of friends, but particularly one that his dad was a photographer, a still photographer. And I remember being around 15, 16 years old, and he was having an exhibition in Mexico City about a project that I was calling Iberoamerica One World, that it was comparing all the people from Tijuana to Chile and like trying to say that we are all the same. And I remember being that age and seeing the exhibition and being like, oh, I want to do this one day. I want to know the world and travel and be able to do images. So after that, they opened like the first photography school in my hometown, and I got there. And then it was like, okay, I love this. And I was always having a small audio recorder. And that was a long time ago, like late 90s, early 2000, no internet. And then I remember like next to the school, there was this big cinema, like art cinema. So I was exposed to like all these.
Cine Morelos?
Cine Morelos. Like it was like the second biggest screen in Mexico. Even like it was a very small place. That was like a very big screen. And of course there was movies of Kurosawa, Kieślowski, Wong Kar-wai, and then I was like, okay, I was dreaming to one day maybe I could do this, but yeah, it was hard because there was no film school there, and my parents, they were pushing me to, you have to go to the university and do something. So I made a project that we were having grants in Mexico City on that time as a still photographer, and I was very lucky that my mentor was Graciela Iturbide, that maybe some of you know her, and if not, I encourage to Google her. And so I was very lucky, and she was a big influence on that time. I was trying to imitate all these black and white pictures, and I brought one that we can put on the screen from that time, that I was like, I think, 20-something years ago, this image, very influenced by her. But yeah, that was more or less the story.
I mean, that was the beginning of intro. But how did you get into actually doing it? I mean, one thing is wanted to.
Yeah, the next step was I was studying communication in my hometown, and I re-encountered with a friend that it was coming from the Cuban film school and having a workshop as a director. And then I saw the film Buena Vista Social Club by Wim Wenders. And then immediately came to my mind that like nearby there was this traditional banda de Tlayacapan in Morelos, and I was like, oh, we have our own Buena Vista Social Club here. So I told my friend, let's write a project, and that's one thing that is really nice in Mexico, that we have a lot of support from the government. So we wrote the project, we applied for the grant, and we got like, I don't know, maybe $3,000, and we bought a camera with that, like a XL1 mini DV, if you remember that camera. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna be the DP and you're gonna direct this film. It's my project, but I wanna be a DP. So, and I remember going the first day and trying to make still frames with the video camera, and he was like, no, that's not gonna work that way. So that was the first time that I DP something, and we unfortunately we never finished the project. And one day I wanna go back because we shot like, I don't know, like 3 times every 5-10 years, so the footage is there.
And then you moved to New York what year?
I moved to New York at the end of 2010, and I was, before that in Mexico City, I was running a small production company. I was doing more director, like commercials and like small TV shows, like music concerts. But I was always inside, like I want to do films, and that was like a very funny story, short one. I lost a plane one day here. My best friend, he was living here already for like 10 years, and then he connected me with other people. They offered me to be a partner of a Mexican restaurant in Williamsburg in Brooklyn, and I was like, I have to take this. And everyone in Mexico was like, you're crazy, like you're doing so well here. And I was doing well, more like I was just bought my first apartment being 30 in La Roma, which now is a super trend neighborhood, not back then. But then I was like, inside me, I was not feeling like, oh, this is the kind of projects that I want to do. And so I decided to break and leave everything in Mexico and then start from zero here. And I remember the first person I met, it was a neighbor upstairs that was coming to the restaurant almost every night, being very curious about mezcal, because that was also the very beginning of mezcal in New York. And then he offered me, I don't know, I mean, he invited me to his apartment to talk about my work, and he was like, where is your website? And I was like, I don't have a website. And he was like, oh, you need a website. And I remember I was very depressed going back home because he showed me other websites of these like Serbian cinematographers, and they were really cool, and they were already publishing books and having 2 or 3 movies. And I was like, I'm never gonna get there. And but then a week later, he's like, oh, are you free? I have this little gig of like an interview of a DJ. And I was like, yeah, of course, I'm gonna go. And then eventually I started to collaborate more and more until another friend came from Mexico, and he was studying at Columbia University. They invited me to a project, and then I connect with the director of Stay Awake, and then we shot Stay Awake, and then we got so many awards that I became the DP of Columbia without being at Columbia. So, and I think I shot around 20 short films from the thesis films, and then after that, I think thanks to Carlos that he recommended me for 306 Hollywood, and then we premiered at Sundance and got the nominations at the Emmys and the Critic Choice Awards, and yeah, and the rest is, yeah, why I'm here.
Looking back in your filmography, in your own career, it seems you've worked with you've worked with amazing filmmakers. How that has happened? Are you very selective? Was it serendipitous? How has that been a process? Because you've really been really good at selecting the right projects for you.
Yeah, I remember when I was here, one thing that I was very clear is like, I'm not gonna go into the commercial world because I was already doing that in Mexico, and I was having the restaurant, so I thought at least I have free food. And then because New York is expensive, so I can work for the rent, but then food it's okay. So that was very important to kind of select the projects that I was like, and I was on that time, of course, building the relationships. And I was very clear that I want to be involved in projects that I feel I can put myself there, and not only to work because I need to work or I need to stand out. No, it was, and it was more coming from the intuition and the connection of human relationships, and that was the case with Stay Awake and Jamie. That I think it was very funny because we went on our way to upstate. I think he was a grip and I was an AC, and then we got lost, and then for 4 hours we start to talk about life, and then on that project we were okay. I think we really think similar. So then I got invited to shoot his next project, that it was a short film that never went anywhere. But we established the relationship. And I think the secret, especially for young people, is like, I was not in this rush of, and thank God was not Instagram like booming on that time, because I was not worried about competing or I need to be this person. I was more like, okay, I'm establishing these relationships and I like this person. I don't know, I never expect honestly to be in the place that I am now, but I think that was part of the formula of like just trying to find the right people, and then like understanding that I could be a good fit or a good collaborator for the project. Because it's not only about just doing things, it's about helping that film to be like show in a way that people respond, no? And I think that was the case. And on the first big project, that it was not a big project, but it was 306 Hollywood, that there was a hybrid documentary. And then I remember shooting 4 days, then after 3 months getting another phone call, let's shoot another 4 days. And another thing that I was doing on that time was like I was experimenting on the shorts with like optics and formats. I was never worried of like, oh, I have to be this like certain look that everyone else is doing. I was like, no, I'm gonna try these lenses because maybe never again I'm gonna have the chance to do it. And then it worked. And then I was like, okay, there is this new one, and there's this, and that was the boom also of all these vintage all glass that I was like, yeah, excited about it.
Yeah, particularly those two projects, 306 Hollywood and 499. I mean, they were really daring. They were really daring projects and are very daring films. Basically, they broke. They're very avant-garde in terms of exploring with a form. What was taking that risk also from the cinematographer's perspective?
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting question because usually people, they always do this division of like, you're a doc cinematographer or you're a fiction narrative cinematographer. And for me, it was always like, we're storytellers as anyone else in the team. And it was funny because on that time, documentary people, they were calling me because my short film narrative work. And then it was the opposite, like the narrative people, they were like, oh, we love your handheld work on that documentary, so we want to bring it here. But for me, it was always more about the story needs to be in this direction, told in this direction. And in 306 Hollywood, it was a lot of experimentation. And what I was doing, I was bringing the tools from the narrative to the doc and vice versa. I think that was a thing that was more coming from the intuition. But I brought like the Steadicam into this 306 Hollywood and a crane and things that they were more like Hollywood, if we want to call it. But they were working really well because, if you can watch the movie, you will understand all that. But at the end, it was more for me about, I'm going to help the story to be in this direction. And I think, 499 was also the very avant-garde and the craziest project. And I remember the phone call from the director telling me, I want to do a movie about a Spanish conquistador that travels 500 years on time and then appears in 2018 in Mexico and do the same road trip. And I was like, okay, how are we going to do that?
With a low budget,
with
a
no money.
micro budget.
But then I came with the idea of, okay, we have to use anamorphic lenses and be very strong about the look. And he was like, no, we cannot use anamorphic because that's a very like conquistador or the optic. And I was like, okay, then you have to hire another DP. And then he was like, okay, we want to work together. And then I decided, I made like a little manifesto with him of like 10 points of the language of the film. And then we were like, okay, there's no camera handheld movement, there's all tripod, and there's available light. And I approached that project as a love and goodbye letter to my country because I knew it was like, we're gonna go to crazy places that maybe I'm never gonna go back again in my life. But I was like, I really miss my country. I was already living 8 years here. And I really wanted to portray my country in a way that I never saw before. That was the other approach. And I think it's a very intense movie and kind of sad, but I think I brought this, if we're gonna call it poetry and hope into the film, because I think my culture, our culture, Mexico is like that. Even if we suffer a lot, there is always hope. And I think we show that on that film. Then brought me all these crazy awards and the agents and the publicists and the relationships with people like Christopher Doyle or Ed Lachman in Poland after winning the Golden Frog and having all these like comments of like, thanks for showing something that is really refreshing. So that's another thing that I want to point, that is always important to be yourself and not, because they were always saying everyone wants to copy like the style of Chivo Lubezki or Ed Lachman or Christopher Doyle, and we're tired of seeing that. And then we saw your project that is only with available light and with anamorphic lenses, and it's a hybrid with this fiction actor. Because I thought if we don't do these strong visuals, then we're gonna do a TV sketch, and we're gonna be laughing. And actually, I was sometimes thinking, oh my God, where is this? But now it's in Criterion Collection. Jim Jarmusch wrote the statement of the movie, and that was crazy when one day he reposted me and I got 2,000 followers that Sunday.
Before we delve a little more into the specifics of how you work with the director and how you visualize, I'm interested kind of in your perspective in terms of, for you, what's the role of a cinematographer in this machinery that's cinema? How do you see your role in all of this structure?
Yeah, I mean, we are the person that we translate the script into images, and we are the right hand, of course, of the director, and we're a little bit of the psychologist of the director, and we're a little bit of the co-producer of the project.
Although you don't get paid for those extra things, no?
Yeah, exactly, without getting paid for all that.
For all the extra jobs.
But yeah, I like to approach the project as a collaborator. No, I think that's very important. I don't get only into the place where it's like, okay, I'm just gonna go into the visuals and the language and that's it. It's like we talk about the edit or the music, or I try to question why you want to do this project, because I know how hard it is to do a feature film that then it's like, okay, I'm gonna go into this 4, 5, 6 month process with someone that maybe we don't connect. It's like, or vice versa, no? And so it's a lot about helping with the experience and the intuition and the tools to make the story better. Because at the end, I think the very important thing about cinematography is that to help the story to be like told in the way we need it to for the audience. I think sometimes we are very focused as cinematographers into doing beautiful images, and it's not about that. It's about doing the correct language for the film. And sometimes it's not like beautiful cinematography, and I think we're gonna talk a little bit later about that, but The Knife is an example of that, where it's like a raw, this handheld style of camera that it was like the story is asking for that. That's on the script. That's on the idea of the director. So it's complex because we try to get into the other person's mind, and then I try to have as much as I can the like human relationship, to go with them and have dinner or a drink, and then understand what is the project about. That then I can come with the best solutions for that.
So in that sense, I'm assuming from what you're saying, the director is more important than the screenplay in terms of taking a.
Yeah, I think that's of course controversy there, but for me, yes, like the script is just the base. And once I'm shooting the movie, usually I never go back to the script because it's physics, and then I see the people playing a choreography in a space, and then the movie is happening, So and then that's, and I believe more into that. Like I get very anxious in the pre-production process because I was like, I want to go into the field and see a rehearsal or a camera test. Because the words are there, but it's like, it's like, imagine that it's a scene between Carlos and me here, and then it's on the script, and then it's like, but he's gonna wear a blue shirt, and then the light's gonna be from where, and how many people is gonna be sitting, and we're gonna cut to them, or you and me. So and then it's very important for me, the location. I think I learned that, and I didn't mention, but I had like a couple of mentors in Mexico City in small workshops, but one was very important, that is Julie Kwai, that is a Hong Kong cinematographer from the generation of Wong Kar-wai, but he was in Belgium. And he was, I think the thing that I got from him is like location is very important. And I remember when I was like taking that workshop that he was sitting like almost in the floor, and he was like, be quiet. And he was observing, almost smelling the location. And I was like, oh, wow. I was like feeling the same way, but never, no one in Mexico was telling me, yeah, that's the way. And then someone from another culture was showing me that it was silence and just feeling can help you to decide where to put the camera, where to put the actors, no? So more or less that.
So it seems a lot of, you have to be considering about a lot of things. Again, the director and many things, trust, talent, the screenplay, location. It seems like you have a lot of things to consider. When you read a screenplay, how do you do that? How do you imagine the film from reading the screenplay? How do you visualize that part?
Yeah, the first thing I do always is like to try to understand the story. No, like not as a cinematographer, as a normal person, I try to understand what is this story about. No, if it's like, okay, there's a story about someone that jumps into the pool and die in the pool. Okay, I got that. No, and because and sometimes there are scripts that are written in a way that is more complex, and sometimes they are very easy to read. So that's the first approach, is like for me to understand what is this project about. Then, of course, I start to get some images here and there, but I try to put that side on another place. And then from there, I try to then make these little divisions of like, okay, scene by scene, I feel this or I feel that. And then I ask the director, I go back and I say, okay, and I try to play with adjectives with the director of like, okay, describe me the scene. I mean, sometimes it's blue and sometimes it's metallic and we don't know what is that, but it's just to have a general idea. Then I try to make references always with still photography more than another movies, because I think for me, to go to another movies is like, okay, we're recreating something that already is being done, and then still photography is more based in the reality. And I'm still a romantic in that sense, and like the still photographies, I love books. So I try to find that reference that then connects with the language of the movie, and I show that to the director. And then we start, and there's of course different kinds of directors where they are very strong visually and they know what they want, or others that they are more like, okay, help me into this, and then we create together.
Which one do you prefer?
No, I mean, of course, I prefer always when it's they have more idea of like the visuals, because then the project gets better, no? And but there are, I think, sometimes more focus on the acting, and then, but I think, yeah, it's tricky, but yeah, it's part of the process. And then we build these like shot lists together, and then we talk about the color palette and all that.
Do you do storyboards, or how do you imagine? How do you also work with camera movements and shot selections?
Yeah, depends, of course, the project, and sometimes we do storyboards, especially when there's these like big scenes of like car crash by night. Like in the summers, we have this scene of like a car crash in the middle of the desert by night, and we're gonna have stunts, we're gonna have like minors in the scene. So we need to do a storyboard, because we have like one night, it's a summer night, it's like 9 hours of light, and then it's daylight again. So we have to plan that very well. That's when we do storyboards. But then when it's like, in the case of In the Summers or The Knife, we go more like to the location, we establish the language, and then we see the choreography, and then from there. Or in the case of In the Summers, we were planning already there was like 4 chapters in the movie, so it was very established language of each chapter, how we're gonna change into that. But yeah, it depends the project.
How do you work with? You've worked with different types of budgets. How do you see the budgets? Is that an impediment? Is that helpful? How do you work around the budgets? And also because I guess it's different working in Mexico, and also I've read when they were doing Amores Perros, Rodrigo Prieto, the things that they did for that movie, you cannot really do it in the US because of liability as well. So how do you negotiate budgets and liability in your trade?
Yeah, no, I know that very well. Like the day that I say I'm gonna put the camera in the middle of the street, and they were like, no, you cannot do that here. No, I mean, I think it's a very good school and thing growing up in Mexico with nothing in terms of cinema making, because my generation that is after Rodrigo and Iñárritu, it was still not, there were maybe 10 movies by year. Now there are like 80, so it's booming the industry there. But I think it was really nice growing up that way, because less is more. And that was also the way I learned from the Hong Kong cinematographer or the Cuban cinematographer that they came to Mexico. And I remember the Cuban cinematographer saying, one light is one problem, two lights, two problems, so you know how many problems you're gonna have. So, but at the same time, of course, you get into this more pro, and then in this country is an industry, and it was really nice coming here and seeing all the resources and the tools. And I remember working with gaffers that I was already, in Mexico you kind of do the same as cinematographer and gaffer, because you have someone else that it's helping you, but there is no knowledge of like filmmaking, no? So, but that's very useful, because I still have that of like, okay, I know where to put the light, and you put that flag there and do this and that. And then but here sometimes it was like, no, don't worry, I know, I just read the script and it's saying that it's like a dramatic scene, so I know I'm gonna use these tools, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's even better than I expect. So, but of course, budget it's always a thing, and especially now, no, I think the industry is going more into less money and more hours, or more this or more that. But I try to be, production friendly in that sense, and try to find partnerships, with rental houses or with my crew that I work with them in a commercial project, and then I have this in the film, help me, and then I maintain that quality, because that's important, or I build these friendships of like, and then sometimes the awards, they help you for that.
Can you elaborate on how you design the lighting setup, which is also, I guess, a very important part of your trade?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Of course, depends the project, but generally speaking, is like I go through the script, then I go with my gaffer and we sit together, and then we start to brainstorming about how this could look. Of course, with all the input from the director. And again, location is a key. So we go to a location and we see how, and I try to observe the real life of the location, how the natural light behaves, that then I'm gonna recreate that. I've been kind of like doing a lot of projects that are based into that naturalism and more dramas, but sometimes I have to recreate more like magic realism, or like underwater scenes. So it's about that. It's like observing the natural light behaves in that location, and sometimes I spend like 5 hours there. Now we have, of course, a lot of tools with the apps that you don't have to be all day there. So you see how the sun is gonna move. And then, I work together with a production designer, and we start to decide also the color palette, and we try to do tests of like, okay, these curtains, they should be yellow or pink or purple. And it's this back and forth, between, and of course the decisions, they come from the script and from your experience, and a lot of about the intuition and recreating that reality.
Should we talk more specifically about your last two projects, In the Summers and The Knife? And we have a clip of In the Summers for those of you who haven't seen it.
Tengo una sorpresa. You can sleep in the car. Oh. Let's go. Yeah. You see that mountain there?
Yeah.
Do you know the name?
No.
I don't know either.
I think we have the other one or no? We can just play it and then we talk about that.
Okay.
The next one, yeah.
Sorry. What happened? She woke you up? She was crying earlier. I didn't really know what to do.
Where's Vicente? Oh, shit, that's right. He told me he was gonna try and find work today. Okay, give it to me. Yeah. You can stay. Come. It's okay. It's okay. Pass me that bottle. Ja, Mama, ja.
Can you get me the burger I left in the grill with fries?
Yeah.
I mean, it seems in the Summers and the Knife are very different projects. On one hand, in the Summers, takes a span of what, 20-something years. shot in New Mexico, and with numerous locations, versus A Knife that happens basically in a single location. The story happens during the course of a night, and shot in upstate New York, right?
No, in LA.
Oh, it was shot in LA.
Pomona,
Sorry,
California.
it was shot in LA. So very different projects. How do you approach them? How do you envision both projects, and what were the challenges of both projects?
Yeah, I mean, also both projects are first-time directors. So, and yes, crazy that one got Best Director at Sundance and the other one got Best Director at Tribeca. So I think, yeah, like in the summers, that was already, I remember not thinking it was a very ambitious project because there were 5 summers in the script. We, at the end in the edit, it's only 4, but we shot the 5 summers. And it was
Just curious. The 5th summer happens after?
no, that was like actually the little girls. There was 2 summers, so then, which makes sense. But yeah, it was this like passing of time of like, yeah, almost 20 years, and it was almost like making 5 short films, connecting the whole movie, because each summer was having like a very unique language in terms of like color and compositions, and very basic. It was going from happiness at the beginning, where like there are little kids and they love the father, through more like darkness and contrasty and like a little desat in the color correction. And the last summer was the hope coming a little bit back, but not as the summer one. And we established that look. Like I was, yeah, fortunate to make tests here with the actor upstairs, and I tried different lenses, and then I found the right tool. That it was these movie cam lenses that they have this. They're from the late 70s, 80s, and there's this amazing texture that it was already making me this nostalgic look that we were looking for. And it was another very important thing, and I think we have some pictures of the test of the main actor, René, his face, and there are different lenses that they were looking more like it was render the face in a different way, and then the movie cam, I found that it was the perfect tool for that. And so yeah, that was the, and also working with my colorist since the beginning, that was a very important tool. We create like kind of the look, and then I was having this lot in the production, and opposite to The Knife, that, as you said, everything happens in one night in one location, and it's by night, and it's with dark-skinned people, and we went to shoot on 35. Film is not dead, and that was already the director very strong about that vision.
Was that the first time you worked with 35mm?
Yeah, that was the first time. I mean, I shot small projects on 35, but that was the first one that I was like a feature film. And I remember going with the producer and saying, okay, but which these are the stills from that project, where I was like, okay, I'm worried about burning film, and he was like, don't worry, burn film. And I was like, okay, great. So we ended up shooting 400 rolls of 35 for that. So that was a luxury, and I was like, okay, I can retire after this because I shot already in 35. No, but it was a completely different mindset, and because that was very complex in the way that we were working with minors on that movie, and we were doing, for example, scene 50 today a little bit, then going to a scene 60, 70, and then 2 days later, let's go back to the 50. It's same location, same time of the day. You're shooting in 35, and we shot by night from 4 p.m. to 4 a.m. because the actors, they were also commit to that. Like, we want to feel that it's night and everything happens by night. So I remember I work with 2 amazing gaffers, which one is here in the summers, Makoto Matsuo from Japan, and the other one in The Knife is also from Japan. and it's Hitoshi, and I love that collaboration with between Japan and Mexico. I think we have something going on there, and but I remember he was very like kind of making weird faces to me of like, oh, we're gonna go back to the 50, and yeah, man, we have to. And then we were pulling images of like, okay, the light was from the right, from the left, blah, blah. It was more like a mathematics, and of course you have to be way more focused or differently focused when you're shooting on film, because there is no room for mistakes. And we're very used to seeing the digital, everyone sees the monitor. And I remember the producers also coming the day 1 or 2 and telling me, it looks so bright. And I was like, no, like, I know that it's okay, but you're seeing just a reference. And that was the beauty of film back in the days, that you were only having the knowledge of like, you know how it's gonna look. Of course, you have these butterflies in the stomach because you shoot and then 24 hours later, you get the files from the day before. And usually they were arriving like 11 midnight, that was like lunchtime. And we were all like, all my team crazy on the iPhones, like, oh yeah, it looks good, no problem. And we were like, yeah, safe, 400 rolls, no issues, no mistakes, loading, no issues in the lab. So it was, yeah, a very, very nice and pro project in that sense.
And for in the summers, I believe you work with a Alexa 35.
Yeah.
What was the difference in particularly working with that camera?
Yeah, no, that was that's a new camera from ARRI, and that was the first time that I was using the camera in a long-term project. And as I was saying before, I came here to do the test, and one amazing thing that they do in this camera is we have these new textures that then you can bake into the image now. So that was like kind of going back into the film feeling of like, okay, I have now this possibility of like being more straight into the look I want of this film. And then again, I was doing this test then with the colorist, and we were emulating some film stocks. And then we found like the right look with like the lenses, the camera, and the texture was very important. And it's funny because it calls soft nostalgic. And I think the most word I hear in the summers is like, it feels very nostalgic. So thanks, ARRI, for doing that. And now they develop more. And because the thing with digital is like, we kind of lose control as cinematographers, and it's very generic image that then in the color or with the lenses. So with this camera, we go a little bit back into that of like statement of like, this is the kind of image. No, recently I shot a car commercial, and the car was black, and they have another texture that calls deep shadow that embrace like the blacks, and I was like, that's perfect. And then, yeah, it's like I encourage everyone to use and explore that textures.
How do you work with that color grading and the movie cam lenses?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I'm very lucky. I've been collaborating for so many years with Kat Raj from Company 3, that is being my colorist in other projects, like small projects. We were trying to work together on a feature film, and finally in the summers, that was the first time. And they are top of the field in terms of color. And I love that she's an artist, and we play a lot by intuition. So what I was doing is like, I was doing this test, and then I have an app on my iPad that you can put film emulations. And I was combining 2 or 3 and then send it to her. And then she was like, and what I wanted to play in New Mexico was like getting out of the classic sepia, like yellowish look that the border.
The stereotypical.
The stereotypical New Mexican or Mexican, because also that was my first time in New Mexico, and I was like, yeah, it's Mexico with asteroids. It's like, and but Mexico from the 90s or something like that. But so that was very important. So I play in these more cooler tones, and I was also embracing this hard light, which is another important thing in New Mexico. Is like, I cannot do this soft light that looks like Paris, because that's a trend, of course, not like, okay, soft and dark. But for me, it was like, okay, we have this super hard light. We have to embrace that. And I remember my colorist saying that. It's like, I'm very happy to see someone embracing that and not being worried about like the hard light. No, hard light is back and big shadows.
What was also the difference between both projects in terms of framing, in terms of camera angles and camera movements? What was the big difference for you?
Yeah, I mean, the knife was like it's a very, very complex project because, and that's why I wanted to do it, because when I got the script and I was like, okay, it's one night, one location, and this African American family with a detective that comes, and it's like a little like a thriller but drama. And then this connection with the director, I told him, because I interviewed for that film and I was the first one, and I told him, it reminds me Haneke, like Amor, like this film that happens also in one location. And then he was responding to that. And then sometimes it's not easy that we have these artsy films in the industry here, and then we start talking about Ceylan and other directors that we love, and the Iranian cinema. So it was a combination of the language there of like doing some Steadicam, some very, as you remember at the beginning, these like slow dollies, out of focus, getting into the focus, like more artsy and very planned shots. And then we got into this like handheld, frenetic, more visceral responding. And I was like, I want to operate this movie. It was difficult because that was a union shoot, but we find a way. And I was like, for me, very important to respond into that. And also the crazy thing of that project is Namdi, the director, was the main actor. And we're shooting on film, so it was a lot on my shoulders of like deciding, can we move on? Because we cannot do playback of every take when he's acting. And then we established this. And it was a beautiful kind of workshop in that sense. And I was very lucky to work with Melissa Leo, Oscar winner in 2010 for The Fighter. And I think, yeah, you when you have someone in front of the camera like her, that is always giving you things. And it's very funny because at the end, the description, they say it's a poetic thriller, which I don't know if that exists or not, but I think that was a little bit my approach with him, because I got all the freedom to respond more intuitively to the actions and the movement. And in the summers, it was more planned. And then, for example, the scene that we were just seeing before, it was very static. As you can see, the camera is never moving. Compositions are more like center. And that's my favorite summer, because it's like, yeah, it's more, I think, totally my influence from Alex Webb and other still photographers that I admire. And I was, because I've been working a lot with like handheld projects, and I was like, okay, I want to do more these static shots. So in the summers has more that in some summers. No.
You mentioned working with Melissa Leo, but also you work with Residente, with René, in his film debut. How was working with both of them personally and professionally?
Yeah, I think, I mean, what I always also try to establish is this like close relationships, because, I mean, at the end you are the eyes of the movie, and then they are in front of the camera, and there is a lot of complicity there, no? And I remember with Melissa, I was a little crazy because she has this reputation of like, she's very strong on set, no? And I remember day one, she came to set and it's like, Alejandro, I'm so excited to work with you. And I went like no, and it's like, no, you. And I was like, oh, all right. And then, and she's like, oh, I'm so happy you're a New Yorker like me, and you're not like one of these Californians. And I was like, okay, that's a good start. And then we start to like go out on the weekends to have like brunch and talk about, because she was a president on the Academy of Foreign Films, and that was the time of Drive My Car, and we're just talking endless about that films. And of course, I was like, how I was working with Oliver Stone, how I was working with Iñárritu, how I was working with everyone. and she was really open, no, and then we established this friendship, and then at some point the AD was like, "Can you like tell Melissa to do that?" And I was like, "No, that's not my job." Even if we're really close friends, that's no, because she questioned everything, and that's what I love, no, and I think I still don't take this too serious in that sense, because it's like, okay, we're playing and then we're making like something special, and she got that, no, I think she got that vibe, and she was always doing things where I was landing the camera at the end on her, and I remember the director being like, "Yes, that was never planned, but." Because she was like, no, scratching her leg or doing something, no? And in the other hand, Residente was the first time that he was acting, and the first thing he asked is like, "Who's the DP?" And then I was like, "Okay, me." That's why he came here. We met, no, and then he was very concerned, no, about the visuals, and I think he was, of course, not expecting that like professionalism, especially from the other actors. That then when he came to set, he was like, "Oh my God, I have to be like good, no?" And then we established another relationship where like we found that we were very similar. I mean, we're almost the same age, and we both come from different like our similar backgrounds and came to New York. And I mean, of course, he's like a rock star in the music, but he was very open to like find this connection of like, okay, how I can do this better. And then as DP, you always help into that. It's like, okay, if you're gonna do a smoke scene, you don't do like, oh, no, it's like slowly, just a little bit, and then that's it. And then he was getting that, he was watching every day the dailies, which I was like, not even myself, I was just putting forward and be like, okay, everything looks good, I have to go to sleep. And he was the next day, "Oh no, the scene yesterday was like," and I was like, "Oh my God, you are really," because he's like that, very, very committed, very professional, very obsessed with like doing better. And then, and you, on everyone that saw the movie, especially at Sundance, he got the greatest reviews, of course, working with the director, with Alessandra.
In that sense, do you enjoy working with actors? Because it seems also like a tough balance, because you're working really closely with the director, but then also the actors have their thing going on, and also I never work with actors really, but I'm sure they go through their own different process. So how difficult is for you as a cinematographer working with actors?
Yeah, I think after all these questions, I'm just realizing how difficult it's like my job. It's like, I was never thinking about that, but yeah, it's of course, and sometimes I work with people that we have zero connection, and then you have to be there. You're a professional, but I try to establish that, and sometimes I run back to the documentary world, because I'm like, okay, we were waiting 3 hours for the actors to be ready, because that was at makeup. And then I'm craving to just go and shoot. And then the next project is a documentary where it's real people and we don't have to wait. But that's that process, no? And of course you have some rock stars and that you have to wait, and they have their own makeup, and they ask for the light that needs to come from the left or for the right. And you have to respect that rule. So it's everything.
I really respect, as we were talking earlier, really respect that versatility of working, and not only working, but also achieving and being celebrating and being awarded both in the fiction and non-fiction. Is that common in your field? And how do you manage it?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's common. It's as I said earlier, it's very difficult because they put you in this group of like, you do documentary and that's it. And I realized that, especially on also on film festivals, no, like, you go with a documentary and people are like, yeah, great, and they go. And then you go with the narrative film and they want to meet you. And it's weird because at the end, for me, again, there are stories. No, of course, there's more or sometimes more money. I don't think anymore. Like docs also, they got like a big place now in the industry. I always make that joke of like, when I'm in the documentary, I'm the construction worker, and when I'm in the narrative, I'm the architect. and it's kind of true in that sense, because then the doc is like, hey, let's load the band, let's unload the band. It's like, do this, do that. And then in the narrative, I have my assistants, and like they bring you the coconut. Oh, he likes coconut water, and then it's like, it's like they learn fast. And yeah, no, it's difficult. I think I don't know. I never thought about that, but easily I wanted to be okay. I see the industry is not very strong on documentary as cinematographer, so I want to do more narrative film, because I think that's and I feel more into that. No, I mean, but I love documentary, and I just shot now when I was the strike last year. I was working on a doc that I cannot say, but it was a very nice experience, and we're shooting on film something. So it was like, I always try to go back, and at least, or I go out with my like photo camera and do street photography and try to be connected with that.
That documentary that you can't talk about it, at least it's going to come this year, next year?
I think, maybe this year. It's it's like a little celebrity in the sports world. That's the only thing I can say.
Two more questions, and then we'll open to the audience. I'm curious about, cinema is going through a major transformation, a major crisis in a way as well. And particularly new technologies, AI. How do you see the challenges right now in your field?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big discussion. As it says in the social media, it's complicated. But I think, I mean, it's not like the worst or the best. I think what is important is to know who you are as an artist, and then use the technology in your advantage. No, I think we were there before with. I remember being so depressed when from analog photography went to digital, and the first time I got a digital camera, I was like, "No way, this is the end." No, and then it was not, and so I was using for the first time, and in the visualization of a project that I'm still interviewing, but I use the AI because it's like a period piece of Mexican immigrants in the 30s. So it's like, there was no references. So I create that references with AI, and I was a little impressed of like the results. The director was not too responding into that, but I was like shocked a little bit of like the quality and like the things you can explore. So in that sense, I think it's a positive tool to like explore. And but of course, we're worried that maybe jobs, they're gonna be affected by that. And I have this mini theory that I think films, they're gonna be like how it is art now in the MoMA. I think for me in 10, 20 years, to watch a film on the big screen is gonna be like having an exhibition at the MoMA. No? It's like very few films they're gonna have the chance to go on the big screen. And it's maybe gonna be very prestige or more like quality, this group of people, which I think is already a little bit happening.
It's already kind of happening, no?
Yeah, and then the rest, unfortunately, they're gonna go on the platforms. And but at the end, I think we have to just be better artists and keep the feelings to produce interesting projects, no matter if it's with AI or analog, or this is the example. No, I shot one with analog film, the other one in digital, and at the end are both stories, they resonate with the audience. That's what matters.
And Mexico has had a big tradition of photography and cinematography, particularly in film, from the great Gabriel Figueroa in the 40s, 50s, to more contemporary DPs. We mentioned Chivo Lubezki, Rodrigo Prieto, and there's many, many more. Do you feel part of that large tradition of Mexican cinematography? Or?
I mean, I hope so. No? Yeah, that was like I grew up watching Gabriel Figueroa movies in Mexico, which is really like one day because there's a question that is being asked so many times of like why Mexican DPs are so good. And I always joke and say it's the mezcal, but no, it's because we are exposed to all these popular cultures since we were kids. And I remember one of the things that I never realized, but it was all these golden era of the Mexican cinema, that it was in every car shop, in every small restaurant, or in every house in Mexico, always in these black and white TVs playing. So unconsciously, we have all these images of that, no, of that era of Gabriel Figueroa, which, by the way, was the first cinematographer in the whole history to have his credit on a poster. And since then, we are like contemplated as cinematographers, part of the poster of the movie, you know. And then, of course, my dream was always to see Mexico winning the World Cup, which I don't think is gonna happen. And then when I moved here, I saw that we were like world champions of cinematography. And then I got a lot of love when I said, oh, I'm from Mexico and I'm a cinematographer. And they were like, oh, really? Like Lubeski and Prieto and Navarro? And I was like, is that true? And then, of course, no, Chivo made this like rock star idea of the cinematography. And I remember being at the Berlinale in a Terrence Malick movie, and when his credit was on the screen, they were clapping more than anyone else. And of course, I got a lot of like people asking me about him. We're part of both, and Rodrigo and the Mexican Society of Cinematographers. And yeah, for me, it's like they were my idols, and especially Rodrigo, Amores Perros. That was the movie that inspired me to be a cinematographer, because that was exactly the way I felt, and like the camera movement. But I think now, yeah, we are a new generation, and we're few here in the US, but it's coming. That talent, I think, is endless, hopefully.
Great. So we open the floor for any questions, and actually we do have a mic, so. Can we have the mic for the audience? Yeah, okay, it's coming. The question is right here in front. Oh, thanks.
Hello? Okay.
There you go.
So in the summers, uses a lot of like visual touchstones to convey memory and get us to like kind of flash back with the characters. And I'm really curious how your own personal experience with memory and how that shows up for you internally like bleeds into your work. And do you like refer to memory for work? How is that something that like ties into your process and experience creating images?
Yeah, no, very, very interesting question. Yeah, I try, I think more at the beginning of my career. Now I try to separate myself, and but always like comes back, certain things, and for example in the house, and it's a biographical movie about the director, and she's Latina, so we talk a lot about that, and that's like kind of the references that I saw sometimes at my grandma's house, or as I was saying, in Mexico is like all this exposure of like places and people. So I think, yeah, I try always to bring that in a certain way, of like, for example, remember, we're gonna take out the yellow from the general color, but we're gonna keep it in the clothes, because that's also warm, and that's like, that makes you feel home. And I remember the wallpaper, and that sometimes it's unconsciously that you do that process, but yeah, it's there. Don't be shy.
We have one or two.
We're gonna have beers after.
And mezcal?
Thank you. This has been very eye-opening and really helpful. What is one thing when a director starts talking to you? What's the way that you can find into the project via the director? Like, what do you look for in your communication with the director? Because the script does it one way, but how do you like a director to approach you?
Yeah, no, amazing question. I think love is the answer. In a general way, yeah, I try to find the connection of myself into the project. As you said, first is the script. So, and the script is like, for example, in the summers, I was like, okay, this is a very interesting script to shoot, and it's kind of course, a dream for any cinematographer to have the chance to portray 5 summers, even if there were 4 in the edit. And then the second step is, okay, I'm gonna meet with the director, and then having this connection, personal connection of like, oh, I grew up only with my mom, for example, and she grew up with her mom, and she was visiting the dad. So that absence of the dad is like, it's a point of connection, no? But that's a very more deep and personal thing, but getting out, it's more me feeling that I can express something with that person, and we can do together the movie we ambition, and yeah, I think at the end is that, and of course you see if you can connect and be together for 4 months or not, because that's the other thing. And sometimes they ask me, and it's like, we're gonna shoot in, I don't know, in New Orleans, and we have to work with like local crew, and I try always to make it happen that my crew comes and then we stay together because they are my friends, and it's better for me to be with them than be by myself FaceTiming with my friends in New York, being like lonely at home every night, because we never talk about that, but it's a very lonely process. You know, a lot of travels, a lot of like hotels, and a lot of like, yeah, solitude and emptiness, no, and a lot of sacrifice, because I'm far from my home, my parents, my brother, blah blah. But I made all that because I wanted to express. So then, if I'm gonna commit to a project, it's like needs to have a personal connection that I'm gonna go and be 4 months with you, and then we're gonna make the movie. And I think at the end, that's what Carlos was asking before. Sometimes it's not that I'm picky. It's more like I take my time to choose the project because I want that project connects. Then the awards, that's different because I never like think about that, no?
That's interesting you said that, because I just shot in Atlanta and I went down by myself because I didn't want to bifurcate the crew. And so I worked with a whole new crew, but I brought my husband as my personal PA. So I had my safety blanket. But
Yeah.
it's interesting that you say that. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one here.
Right here in the second row. They will be good luck.
Hi. It was interesting to hear how you started your journey to becoming a cinematographer, because I had a similar journey where I started in film photography and had a female mentor. It was in documentary, Mary Ellen Mark, and like that was how I learned image making before I even wanted to be a cinematographer. And then finally she sat me down when I was like, I think like 16, and she was like, documentary photography is dying. You need to go into film. I was like, okay, like that's really sad, but okay, they're not paying journalists to shoot. You have to freelance. Okay, so I did a pivot. But when I was applying to grad school, they asked me, why didn't you choose to be a cinematographer? Why are you going in for directing? And I said, I'm not a superhuman. Like I'm not. I don't have superpowers in cinema. I really do believe this. Cinematographers are like superhumans. Like I really do believe if you put the best director down next to the best cinematographer and you quiz them on like cinematic technique and language, the cinematographer is going to win every time. Like there's just the world your heads hold and the ability for filmmaking is so vast, and you are put into so many positions, and you have to adapt in a way that directors aren't asked to adapt. And so my question is, why didn't you go into directing where you have that? Why did you go into cinematography where, you're asked to be a superhuman, essentially? You have to ask to have superpowers, and there's less, like ribbons and fanfare, and so much more asked of you also.
Yeah, no, I think Mexican is my superpower. But, no, it's a very interesting question because of course, I think for me, it's about two things. One is I want to do more projects in less time. And I respect and I admire directors because the process are so long. I mean, in the summers was like a 6-year process, and you know that. And
That's the whole distribution part, which is also...
Yeah, Stay Awake was a 7-year process from the short film to the feature film. And in that 7 years, I shot 5-6 movies, no? So, and the other is like the responsibility of like, I think that's one thing that I prefer to be behind the camera. I feel more comfortable. Even if I don't look like that, I'm more private and I'm not super social. So I love to be in my camera behind. I feel protected. I feel like that's my field. And as a director, you need to go to thousands of meetings. You need to talk with people, investors, financiers, and then with the studios and the actors and the DP. And so it's like, I think it's too much. And but I do my small things, and hopefully soon you can see it. But I made a small short film at the pandemic, which Makoto, my gaffer, is my main character. And it's based on a Japanese poem, and it was just playing with that, no? Like, and it's more like I want to express what I was feeling on that time, but I don't have any plans to direct.
Should we take 2 more questions? Well, there's like 3.
And also, can we put the little thing that I wrote? I would love to just mini talk about that before we finish.
1, 2, 3.
So I wrote this that is being like following me for so many years, and but yeah, we can talk.
Hello. So my question is about tell future cinematographers who just start right now how to win the project. I do hear a lot in the industry that you need to like kind of have some social gathering, know the people, become really friends. Some people say like fake it. So apart from all that process, could you tell more about details how to win the project if you are invited to the interview? Do you come with the vision? Do you come with the deck? What's your process? Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting question because as we were talking now, we were in a very competitive time where usually before was like, okay, you're gonna do this project and that's it. And now, for example, I interview for more, like even in the summers, The Knife, I interview with another 10, 12 DPs. And at the end, I think it's like, yeah, be yourself. It sounds like maybe a little like normal, but I try to prepare, and sometimes I do decks, sometimes I don't. Depends like the project. For example, in The Knife, I made a deck because also it was like, yeah, with Namdi that I was not knowing exactly what was his think about, but as I put there in the number 6 is like listen before you talk, because I made that mistake in many interviews before where I was telling the director what I was like thinking about the project, and I was completely the opposite, and I never got the project. So now I learned that it's like, okay, listen, and then after that you can respond to that, no? Because we have this initiative like, oh, we want to do the project, we want to be the best, we want to do this and that, and it's like, no, take a minute. And I think it's about, yeah, being honest with yourself, because I have to admit, like sometimes I interview for projects that I don't want to do, but per se I always say yes to an interview because I meet people and I practice. And that's the other thing that I think, yeah, we didn't talk about that, but it was really hard for me also as Mexican and minority, blah, blah, to have the chances, no? And I always do this analogy with the soccer, with the football, because I play, and it was like you're in the bench and they put you in the field at minute 85 and you just have to score a goal. If not, you're out. So that's why we have to prepare more and more. And I think now everyone is not about being Mexican, or not everyone now needs to do more than 10 years ago. So you have to do more research, you have to prepare better for an interview, and of course you have to do all these other elements of like the social media, and now I have a publicist, but nothing of that works if your work or you as an artist, you don't have that like strong vision. Because some people, they say, no, you're really good on your social media. And I'm like, no, that's not about that. It's because I work hard, and people, they don't know, but I have a little studio, and I go there and I spend 6 hours of the day sending emails, doing research. It's not like I'm behind the camera and like drinking on a film festival getting the award. No, it's like tons of like, and as I said earlier, no, I miss like funerals, weddings, so many things to be the person that I am now. So it's about this hard work and the commitment and being like, yeah, like doing better, no? Mm-hmm.
We have 2 more questions over here on the right side.
Hi. Hello. Can you hear me? Oh well, she kind of just asked my question already, but I was curious as a recent grad and an aspiring sort of cinematographer myself, what is like some of the beginning steps you can take to get your foot into the industry, and is it better to take on indie projects or something that is more ambitious, or just, you know, generally speaking?
Yeah, I mean, I think now, like, whatever is offered, take it, because we are in these tough times where there is not a lot of offers out there, and I can tell after pandemic, now I'm competing with DPs that I admire so much, and then it's not like I got to their level, it's like they're coming down, because the industry is not anymore the way it used to be. And it's sad, and I don't want to be a pessimistic, but it's also one thing that I've been always doing, is like take whatever is offered and do it the best way you can, especially when you're learning or you're a new person in the industry. And then also reach out to the people that you admire. I have a couple of young cinematographers from Mexico based here that they reach out to me on Instagram, and then I'm like mentoring them and helping them, and not only from Mexico, from other countries as well, or people that they come and visit the city and it's like, are you up for a coffee? Yeah, if I'm free, sure, let's talk. We have to do like together this community. We have to open, no, because I know how hard it is. So I want to change that for the people if the best way I can, no? And I think a very good example also is ARRI being open to do these events, to be open to come and do a test, no? Because the industry is changing. So I think it's just like go up front and reach out to the people that you admire, and they're gonna answer you for sure.
Thank you.
And there was one last question.
Do you consider it important to go to film school or the academia, the university part? Because as an immigrant and coming from Venezuela, that I never had a chance to try that, and I love the craft so much. Sometimes I feel like very overwhelmed when I'm around and I admire it, but it's very overwhelming sometimes. And like he said, sometimes you just want to like step a foot into it, but you're like shy, and like how do you overcome that? How do you like make peace with that? And I don't know, like that's something that has happened to me in the past, but I usually like struggle with it, like so that's my question.
Yeah, I mean, I never went to the film school, but I went to the art school, and I think, yeah, school always helps because you're gonna meet people, and that was my case in Colombia, not going to Colombia. But
you saved a lot of money.
I saved some money there. But yeah, I think again, no, we have this community. It's like go to the events that they are post there on ARRI is doing things all the time. We're planning, for example, in the Mexican Society of Cinematography to start like next year the mentorship program in Spanish. That is also a lot of people are craving that. Like the ASC is doing an amazing job on that, and they are of course the example. But Mexican Society of Cinematography has very, very interesting people there, and we want to establish that in Spanish or in English. But that's part of that, and the same thing. I mean, one of the things that I work sometimes with the people that I'm mentoring is like I bring them to the events and I put them and say, yeah, go and talk with Luis from ARRI, and he's not gonna bite you, and he's nice, and you can ask him to come and try the lenses, and because I think we were having this idea that is inaccessible, and we're so far from that, and at the end it's not. If you have a good idea and maybe you don't have the money, but then you can come and know the equipment, and then when you get the money or the producer or whatever, then and then you establish that, and believe me, Luis is nice.
Well, just before we close down the conversation, you already talked about some projects that you have been working. What are you looking for in the next few months?
Yeah, I'm in talks for the next projects, and yeah, as I said, it's been like a difficult times, and I have a couple of offers to shoot here in New York of feature films, which is very interesting because that's the first offers in the last 5 years that I have in New York, and I live here and I'm always shooting outside. But that's one thing, and yeah, I've been doing some commercials in Mexico City lately, and yeah, trying to choose the next one in the best way possible. And I think now finally we are getting an agreement, the union and the studio. So I think it's gonna open, and people are already feeling that it's gonna be better the next months.
We want to thank ARRI for hosting us. Thank you so much, Jano, and thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, we're gonna have some beers, and we can keep talking. And thank you for coming on Thursday. Like seeing this full house in New York, it's not easy. And gracias.